Okay, so for this week's lesson, we're going to talk about how you use chords to guide your solo. This is a really great way to understand, first of all, to understand the fretboard and understand how to play your chords all over the fretboard. But it's a really good way to play the chord changes because you're literally pulling notes out of the chords. If you can visualize the chords and see them, then you can target these harmonies, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to play this, and we're going to split this across 2 lessons. So in this video, we're going to go through the first half of that lead, break it all down, I'll show you where all those notes come from. If you'd like to watch the second half, download the tablature, get the MP3 jam track, which I have in multiple tempos, and also the on-screen tab viewer, which has the tab and the video on the screen at the same time. You can loop sections, you can slow down the playback. There's no talking in that. That's just a great way to sort of review everything we're talking through. You can get all of those extra materials for this to really practice what we're going to talk through by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for EP623. Okay, let's talk about the key of, the chords in this song. The song is in the key of G, and I wrote this jam track because I wanted something that just, it had some non-conventional chord structure to it. A lot of the stuff that I do, and a lot of the stuff that you hear in jam tracks in general, tend to be 1-4-5. It's either country or rock or blues, but it's very safe and predictable because that stuff's fun to play over, and that's the reason for it. But something like this, we have a 1 chord which is a G, and then the next chord is a B7. Well, B7 is not in the key of G. It's not in the chord family of G. A B minor would be in the chord family of G, but not B7. That's a borrowed chord. And so the way I'm thinking of this B7 chord, for really lack of a better description of what's going on here, I think of this as like a dominant chromatic chord, because the chord we go to after the B7 is a C, which is our 4 chord. So here's kind of what I did when I was writing this. I kind of reverse engineered it a little bit. I started with my 1 chord and then I went to the 4 chord. Well, what's a chord I can put in between the 1 chord and the 4 chord to make it sound interesting? There's a lot of options there. I could have done the diminished thing, but one trick, or one technique I should say, it's not really a trick, is to play your 1 chord and then play whatever your 4 chord is, just go down a half step and play that major chord. So you can play a B. And then that slides up to your C, which is your 4 chord. And then to get back to the 1 chord, I played my 4 minor. So that's a C minor. That's another technique that's often used. There's lots of ways we can get back to our 1 chord. The most obvious one would be to play the 5 chord, right? So that would be my D7. So I could have went G, B7, C, D, or D7, which pulls me right back. That's so done, though. It's so been done, I should say. So let's do something more creative. So one technique is to take that 4, play its minor, very pretty kind of sound. I got that's from the Beatles. I always think of the Beatles when I think of the minor 4. And then we'll go back to the 1 chord. So that's what's going on so far, and I'm going to talk about what to play over this in just a second. So then we're back to the 1 chord. The next chord is my E minor, relative minor for the key of the song. It's also the 6th chord. Then we go to another borrowed chord. This is a secondary dominant chord, which is my A7. Now A minor would be in the key of G, but not A7. But A7 is acting as a secondary dominant chord, which means it's really the 5 chord of the next chord we're going to, which is my D, or D7. I think I played D7. And D7 is the 5 chord of G, which pulls me back to the G. So what just happened there was I played the 5 chord of the 5 chord of the 1 chord. Just pause the video and soak that in for a minute if you have to think about it. But that's what a secondary dominant chord is. You can use them at any point in your composition. If you're writing something and you're going to a chord, you can always just play the 5 chord of the chord you're going to. That's just one of those techniques, and it's going to sound kind of cool. It'll kind of give it almost a ragtime kind of feel. So there's the 5 chord of my D, and then the D chord is the 5 chord of G. So that's what that is. That's a secondary dominant chord. And you can check out that lesson that I put up on the screen if you want more information on that. Okay, so that's the chords we're going to play over. Let's listen to this first little phrase, and then we'll talk about how to do it. Okay, so for the 1 chord, I play this. That's That's my first little harmony. And this was something we talked about in a lesson a few weeks ago. I'll put that lesson up on the screen if you want more information on this. Just a few weeks ago, I talked about how you've got these two harmonies that are all over the fretboard. It was super popular. A lot of people really liked that lesson. This comes straight out of that lesson, this little harmony. And all I'm doing is I'm building to this, these two notes. They're inside of my G chord using the E shape, strings 2 and 3, and I'm building to it with a hammer on like this. So that's just one way to kind of create the sound of that G chord. So I played that, and then the next chord is a B, and so I ask myself, as I'm writing this composition, I ask myself, where is the nearest B? I don't want to just jump all over the fretboard. You want it to sound fluid when you're writing these compositions. It's like it just sort of flows from one note to the next. So the nearest B is right here using the A shape. And look at this. All I have to do, I can keep my ring finger from that G, and I can just put my pinky down on the 4th fret 2nd string and play those two notes. Those are inside of my B chord using the A shape. So I played it like this. You've got your G, and then I played the B. Just hit strings 3 and then 2. Gave it some vibrato there. And then the next chord is my 4 chord, which is the C. And watch this. I just slide it up. Because look, there's my C chord. It makes sense, right? B chord, C chord. Yeah, I'm just playing these two notes out of that chord. So all we've done so far is we're just playing the chords. And then I went like this to get to the C minor. So once we slid into this, I put my index finger down on that 3rd fret 1st string and hit strings 1, 2, because all I'm doing there is playing this chord, right? It's my C chord. It's the top part of the A shape. There's the bottom part, here's the top part. And then watch this. I can just keep my ring finger, my index finger, lift my pinky, put my middle finger down on the 4th fret 2nd string, and play that. This little stair step shape, that's my C minor. Look at my C minor using that A minor shape, and look at strings 1, 2, and 3. That's it. That's where that's coming from. So we have for the G, the B, the C, the C minor. So then the song goes back to the G, and I just went like this. Just slid into strings 2 and 3 out of my G chord using the E shape. So after I slide into that G, then I just walk up the major scale like this. So that's the major scale, right? And so all I'm doing is after that, I put my pinky down on that 5th fret 2nd string, let that note ring out while my index finger hits the 2nd fret 1st string and plays that. And then I move it up 1 to the 3rd fret, and I play those two notes, my 1st and 2nd string. Now those two notes, now this is where the song goes to that E minor, but these two notes are in that E minor chord, and I'm thinking about my E minor chord voicing here. So you've got E minor here, you've got your E minor here, you've got them all over the fretboard, but you're always trying to find the one that's close by. You don't want to jump around. There's time and a place for that, but for the most part, 90% of the time, you're just sort of staying where you're at when you're playing a lead. You don't. That's how you do it if you're singing, right? You're trying to emulate the voice or some kind of a vocal thing. So from the G, major scale up to the E minor, and then watch this. Look at that. So what I'm doing there's my E minor. Now watch this on the 2nd string. We go 5th fret, 4th, 3rd, down to the 2nd fret. And then I put my ring finger back on that 3rd fret 1st string and play those two notes. Here's what I was thinking about. I knew we were going to the A7. There's my A7 chord. Look at strings 1 and 2. Oh, now it's starting to make sense. So my E minor, we're just walking it down chromatically to the A7. Just using strings 1 and 2. So Then after this A7, I play this. Let me show you that. So after the A7, the song goes to the D, right? Which is my 5 chord. And I just played strings 1 and 2 out of my D chord right here. These 2 notes. I played it like this though with these 2 fingers because I'm just gonna walk up the major scale playing harmonies. Now this is just one of those little things I've got memorized. Unfortunately, this little part here is not really following a chord shape, at least not in my mind. And I know how to do that on strings 1 and 2 like this. So if I were starting here with this G note on the 2nd string, I could play it like I've just got that little pattern memorized. And as a quick way to think about doing that, you can think of this as your major shape, where you've got your fingers right beside each other. And then you can think of this as your minor shape, where you've got a space or a fret in between them. And think about your chord structure. You got major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. You know, it's the same chord format that follows the chord family. And so once you can think of it that way, it's just sort of an easy way to find these little harmonies. Anyway, that's a whole other lesson. I'll save that for another lesson. Leave a comment if you would like more information on that. But the idea was to go up to here. But instead of me just playing this straight, I went just to make it kind of cool. Right here. Now here's where, okay, here's what I did. I borrowed on the 7th fret, strings 1 and 2, played those 2, and then did a hammer on to the 8th fret 2nd string. But this is where we're at. There's my G chord using that D shape, or you can think of it as your C shape. However, that D triad shape is in both of those shapes from Cage. But that's where we went. There's my G note, right? So we went from this D up to my G. And now this is where the song is going to repeat. We're going to go through those same chords. All right, so we played over the G. We have this to represent our G. The next chord is a B7. So where's my nearest B7? Well, in this neighborhood, we've got, oh yeah, if I borrow on the 7th fret, I can play B7 right here, right? Here's my B chord using the E shape. Take my pinky off, put it down on the 10th fret 2nd string. That is a B7. I'm just gonna play strings 2 and 3 though, these 2, out of that chord. I don't need the whole chord. The band is doing that. I just need to play something that fits in with the chord. So for the G, I played this, little hammer on. For the B7, now you can see where that's coming from. It's coming from this chord shape. And then watch this, then it goes to the C. Where's my nearest C? You got a C chord here using the E shape. And that's how I played it. Just played strings 2 and 3, slid into them. Little embellishment by hitting the 10th fret 2nd string. And then the next chord is my C minor, so you can think of it like that, really, just one finger. Now I didn't play the chord, I went like this. Little Jerry Garcia kind of thing, which is a series of pull-offs, which he does a lot, and he does a lot better than I do. He'll do like four notes pull-offs. But anyway, what I'm doing is a pull-off between the 10th fret, 9th fret, and the 8th fret on the 2nd string. And it's just like this. You just line your fingers up like this and go. So you just pick it once. And then you hit the note below that on the 3rd string, which is your flat 3s. Like that. So we have, from our G, we have, there's the B7, there's my C, there's the little walk down or pull off to get me to the C minor sound. All I played was one note, but that represented that C minor chord because it's the flat 3. So after that C minor, then the song goes back to the G chord, and then to the 5 chord, which is my D, and then back to the G. So I have to play something over the G, the D, and the G. This is what I played. So look at this. That's the first thing that I played. That's strings 3 and 1 on the 7th fret, and I hybrid picked that. So I picked with my pick on the 3rd string, and then I used my finger to pluck the 1st string. Why is that a G? Why does that represent a G? Where are we at? Oh yeah, we got our G chord here using that D shape. Look at strings 3 and 1. That's all it is. I'm just playing the chords. I hope you're seeing that. With all of these harmonies, they're just the chords. So really the key to this is being able to find those chords all over the fretboard. You have to become familiar with your chord voicings. Back to the cage system. That's why it's so critical. So I played that. Then the song goes to the D7. And so I have options here. Where's my nearest D7 to here? Well, look at this. Oh yeah, that's like that A7 shape. Here's my D chord using the A shape. There's my D7. It's right here in the same neighborhood. But instead of me playing it like that, which I could have done to get me back to the G, I went like this. This is a little country pedal steel kind of harmony thing. So I'm hybrid picking again, picking on the 3rd string, plucking on the 1st string, and I'm just bending both of those strings. And you just have to bend them sort of enough. Basically what you're trying to bend to is to hit that flat 7 of your D. Now it's kind of hard to do when you're bending both of them, but you can get it directionally, and it's enough that you can sort of tell what's going on there. And then I came down here, strings 1 and 3, using that same shape. Why did I come here? Because we're still playing over the D chord. Why does that still work over the D chord? There's my D chord there. Oh yeah, of course that's gonna work there. D, and then to my G chord here. There's my G chord using the E shape. Here's strings 1 and 3 out of that. And then I did a little embellishment, which I talk about in lessons all the time. I'll put a lesson up on the screen that has this embellishment if you want to go back and kind of review that. But that's the idea. It's just this triad out of the E shape. But you put this note down here on the 5th fret 3rd string. That's your sus4. And then it resolves to the G. And so all of that is really the A part of this little composition. And you play through the cycle 2 times there. Come join us in part 2 where we'll go over the B part. I have a new set of chords, and I'll play that at the end of this just so you can hear what it sounds like. But yeah, it's a new set of chords and new set of ideas to play over those chords. But hopefully you're getting the vibe of this. It's really just finding these chords and being able to see them. One last little thing I want to leave you with. When I came up with this, I didn't just improvise this like right on the fly and be able to do it like flawlessly. Something like this is a little different when you got a lot of kind of curveball chords like this. You kind of have to think about it a little bit, or I do. I sort of have to map out what I'm going to do. Now I have lots of options that light up in my head, but I'm not really sure, how to do that. So I would have to kind of write those chords out and kind of figure that out and come up with a part, basically construct a part. Just wanted to mention that so that I didn't give a false impression that I just improvised that. I had to work at it a little bit. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Leave a comment. Let me know if you've got any like breakthrough moments in this. Or if you have any questions in anything. Otherwise, I'll see you in part 2 where we'll go over the second half.